All right, enough of the boring technical stuff. Let's talk about the stuff that's going to matter to you when you're in the field troubleshooting and working on these fryers. So let's start with a filter pump motor that won't come on at all. We first need to make sure that the thermal overload on the motor is not tripped by pressing it in and seeing if it clicks. If it does, then we can try energizing it again from the control panel. Something to keep in mind is if it was just the thermal overload that was tripped, is that we need to make sure that we take this opportunity to train the store staff, because more often than not, this is caused by heavy crumb buildup on the filter pad inside the filter pan. And this is an operational issue. Make sure to remind them that the filter pad needs changed once a day, and that if they are a high volume store, they may need to scrape the crumbs off the top of the filter pad in the middle of the day to maintain filtration performance. They just have to be careful not to puncture the pad when doing so. If it's not the thermal overload, then we can make sure that one of the circuit breakers over here on the left-hand side is not tripped. It will be one of the bottom two circuit breakers. So if we push those in and they click, that means that they were tripped. If that was the case and one of them was tripped, then that could mean that we have an issue with the filter motor if it continues to happen again. If the problem is not with the circuit breakers, then we can remove the left side panel so that we can gain access to our filter pump motor relay. Remember, for 4 vat units, you will have to remove the cover over this enclosure and it will have to be removed. Now we can go into the control and energize that filter motor again, and then come back over to our relay to check our voltage. Do you remember what voltage we should have right here on the coil for our filter motor relay? Remember, it's 12 volts DC, right here on the bottom 2 terminals. If we have that, then we should have line voltage across the top 2 terminals going out to our filter motor. If not, then we have a bad relay. If we do have that voltage, then we can proceed with checking the voltage at our motor and potentially have an issue with a bad filter motor. So we talked about what troubleshooting would look like for a fryer that the filter motor won't come on at all. But what about if we have a situation where the oil is just coming back up slowly and the filter motor is running? First, what I want to do is check and see if I have good suction right here at my plug and play connection by placing the palm of my hand over it and feeling for suction. If I have good suction, then we might have missing O-rings right here on the filter pan. Or if that's not it, then we likely have a filter pad that is partially clogged. If all that checks out okay, there are a couple other items it could be that are less common. We would want to check for any restrictions in the bottom of the filter pan or restrictions in the pickup tube. Another possibility is the pump motor rollers inside the pump that are wore out and maybe need replaced. The last thing to keep in mind is possibly a partially clogged check valve within the filter system. The third and last situation you might run into on this fryer is where the filter motor is running but not bringing any oil up at all. When that happens, I like to start right here like we did before and check for suction. And if I have good suction, then I know the problem is in my filter pan and I can go ahead and take that apart, and maybe it was put together incorrectly, or maybe it's heavily soiled with crumbs. It also might be that one of these O-rings are gone, or maybe even all of them. On the flip side of that, what if I don't have suction here at all? Well, I want to know if the problem is in my pump or if I have a clogged check valve or something like that. So I want to start by taking off the outgoing line of my filter pump and then coming back up here and checking for suction. If I have suction, then I know my pump is good and the problem is past the pump, like maybe a check valve. If I take that line off though, and I still don't have suction, then I know the suction issue is within my pump and I might have a bad pump or bad rollers, leaking O-ring, etc.